On this computer, I have a DirectX card rather than an OpenGL graphics card, so it may not look as good as it would on another computer with real view graphics. For example, I can't really see through this lens all of the time. But on your computer with real view graphics, it'll look a bit better. I want to make a change on this assembly, and we're going to do an exploded assembly on these parts to show how this assembly goes together. Before I do that, I made a little mistake. I have a sub-assembly here within the head assembly. So I have inside of the head, I have another assembly, and I accidentally put that into an unnamed assembly here. So I have this bulb assembly, and then the lens and lens cap and so forth. So I want to dissolve this sub-assembly so that it's all just within this head. The head itself is a sub-assembly. So I'll right click and I'll select dissolve that sub-assembly. And so now I have these components and this sub-assembly within the head sub-assembly. The first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to create a new configuration, and you might be able to drag up this bar or come up here and click on Configuration Manager. I'll click here on the Configuration Manager in this one, and then I'm going to set that I want to create a new configuration. So I'll right click and I'll say Add a Configuration. And I'm going to call this one Exploded Assembly. Let's just go ahead and say OK to that. After I've created my configuration, I will right click on that configuration and I'll tell it to do an exploded view. And I want to move this head up 60 degrees. So I'm going to select the head assembly as the component that I want to rotate. And I want to rotate about this pivot pin. So right now we can see that the origin is over here, and I need for it to be over here. The next step you have to be a little bit careful about doing. I'm going to click and drag. Don't let go to the mouse. I'll click and drag on that white dot, and I'll drag that over and drop it someplace inside the circle. It will find the center of that circle. Now I've turned on these rotation rings. You may have to do that down here to show the rotation rings. Shows the degrees of freedom that this has right now. It could move along the Z or it could rotate. We want to rotate. I'm then going to come over here and I'm going to put in 60 degrees as the angle that I want to rotate. So I'll do 60 and I'll select Add Step. Now it moved it the wrong way, so I need to edit that. So I'll go up here to, I'll have to get out of this first. So say OK to that. And then I'll expand this and I'll right click and I'll on the exploded view and I'll say edit that feature. And now this is the box I was looking for. I'll expand that and I'll click on this and I'll click here to reverse that direction. Okay, so now it's going up 60 degrees. I'll say OK to that. Alright, so then I'm going to right click on that exploded view and I'll do collapse, and then I'll right click on it again. I'll tell it to animate the explode. And it's going the wrong direction, so putting in just flipping that direction didn't take care of the problem. To make any changes, I need to close this animation controller. I'll edit feature, and so there it's up in the position. Let's reverse that direction again, and actually I have to edit this, and so I'll click here to edit this, and I'm gonna, it's not really doing what I expected by clicking that reverse direction, and so I'm going to put in minus 60 degrees. Alright, so now I'll collapse this, and then I'll right click and I'll say Animate Explode, and so now we see that it's going up the 60 degrees. So that's a little bit tricky in getting that to do as you intended. Now you can increase or decrease the speed. You could tell it to go into a loop to go back and forth, and let's do that. So we'll see it going down, and we'll see it go back up. If I want to increase that speed, now that I've had it go up 60 degrees, I want it to go back down 60 degrees again. And so I'm going to right click on the exploded view. I'll say I want to edit that feature, and I'm going to select the head assembly again. I want to move the coordinate system back to this pivot pin. So I'll click and drag that white dot. I'll move it over here, drop it inside that circle. It snaps to the center of that circle, and this time I need to go back down, so I'll put in 60 degrees, add that step, and I was expecting it to rotate back down. Let's see what we have here. So in the first one I have minus 60, and on the second one I had, and that should have been this, okay, and then this one's on 60. So this one is minus 60, this one's on 60. Well, let's say okay to that, and let's see what happens. So I have two steps here. I'm going to right click and I'll tell it to collapse. So that's our starting position. Then animate the explosion. Goes up and comes back down, and actually let's put this it's going back and forth. Let's tell it just play back normal, and I'm going to slow that down, and we'll play this. So it should go up and it should go back down. Now this is different than playing it back and forth or playing it in a loop, because I have two different motions in here that I want to take over into the animation environment. So in order to do anything, again, I need to close the animation controller. Next, I want to do a 360-degree turntable rotation. Now we could do that in the animation environment, but we'll do it here in the exploded assembly environment. And so right now I have it on exploded. So if you have it on collapse, I'll put it back onto exploded. And I could either right click here and add a new exploded view, or I could add the step to the existing exploded view. Now I'm going to right click on this exploded view, and I'm going to tell it to edit that feature. And this time I want to rotate the entire flashlight. So I'll select the first component, I'll hold down the shift key, I'll select the last component, that selects everything in between. I want to rotate about the center of this face, so I'm going to click and drag this white dot, and I'm going to drop it inside this loop. It'll move it to the center of that loop. And then I want to go 360, but I've had trouble if I put in 360. It seems to get confused sometimes. So I'll put 359 and then I'll change it. So I'm going to add that step, and then I'll accept that. So here's that third step. I'm going to right click, go back to collapse, and then I'll right click and I'll do Animate Explode. So it goes up, it comes back down, and it does a 359-degree rotation. Now I want to change that to 360, so I'll close the animation. I'm going to go to the exploded view and I'll say edit feature, and then I'm going to click on step number 3, and right now it's set to go 359. I want to change that to 360. I'll say done on that edit. The next thing I want to do is I want to move the two pins out so that we can move the head up. So I'm going to select one of these pins, and you can either select it over here or you can select it on the pin directly. Again, I want that coordinate system to be out here, so I'm going to click and drag, and I'm having trouble clicking and dragging that circle, and so I'm just going to clear that selection and try it again. Okay, so I'll select that. I've got somehow get this face selected, and I don't want that. Let's clear this selection. I'll clear all these selections. Here we go. Okay, so I'll select this pin, and that time it just moved the coordinate system. I need to, there we go, we have that pin selected, and then I want to move this out on the x-axis. And so I'm going to drag this pin out about like that, and then notice that there's a little glyph on the right mouse button to accept that, and then I'll select that again, and this time I'm going to move it up on the Y, and I'll accept that, and then we'll say okay to that, and we'll test it out. So I'm going to collapse, and then I'll animate the explosion. It goes up, goes down, 360 rotation, that pin goes up, or it comes out and then goes up. Then we want to do the other side, we'll do the same thing. Edit this feature again. So I want to move this pin, so I'll go to my exploded view, I'll tell it to edit that feature. I'll select this pin, and I'm going to drag the x-axis about like that. I'll hit the right mouse button to accept it. I'll select the pin again, and I'm going to move it up, right mouse button to select it. I'll say okay to that. Moving forward, I'm going to make a couple of changes here for selection purposes, and I'm going to change this to shaded with edges so we can see the edges of the components. And then also, I have this lens is transparent, so I want to make that lens, for now, I want it not to be transparent. So I'm going to click on this arrow to expand this, and now go into the head subassembly, and I see that the lens here is set to be transparent. I'm going to turn off that transparency. Next, I want to move the entire head forward away from the handle. I'll go to my exploded view and I'll say edit feature, and I will select the head. Now, I've tried to drag this white dot the way we did before, and for some reason I'm not able to drag that. So I'm going to come over here and I'm going to clear this selection right here. And so I'll delete that selection, and I'm going to delete this selection as well. I'm going to come back up here and make this my active selection to set the explode direction, and I'm going to select one of the circles here, and it should put it perpendicular to that circle. And so now we see it's perpendicular to that circle. If I also want to rotate this, I could select that same circle for the rotation axis. In this case, I'm not going to rotate it, so I'm just going to click and drag this out here about like that, and we'll say done on that to accept that one. And then we may want to test that out, so I'll go back and I'll go to my collapse, and I'll then explode it. So it goes up, goes back down, it rotates 360 degrees, the pins come out, and the head moves forward. Next, I would like to move the lens cap, the lens, and the bulb assembly out of the head. So I'll come over, I'll right click, I'll say edit that feature, and I'm going to select the lens cap. So I'll need to expand the head assembly, and I'll select the lens cap, and the bulb assembly. Right? I want to change the coordinate system, so I'm going to come over and I will right click and I'll delete that for the translation and for the rotation, and then I'll go back to the translation and I will select one of these circles, and I'm going to move this out. I'm going to move this out a little bit further so that I have some room back in here, and I will accept that. Then I want to move these components back, and actually let's move the lens cap a little bit forward first. And so we'll edit our exploded view, and this time I'll select the lens cap to move. I want to change the coordinate system, so I'm going to clear that selection, and I'll select this circle, and I want to make sure I had the lens cap and not the lens. Okay, so I have the lens cap. I'm going to move that forward. Now I would like to rotate that at the same time, but I've had a lot of trouble trying to do the rotation, and so I'm hesitant to even try to do the rotation. But let's go ahead and we'll put in 60 degrees, or let's do 359. I don't know if this will work or not, but we'll try it. Alright, I want to test that out, so I'll go back, I'll collapse, and then I'll animate the explosion. It goes up, down, rotates, pins come out, head moves forward, lens moves forward, and it did rotate at the same time. It was a little bit fast to see, but it did rotate. Alright, now I want to move these components out, and so I'm going to do a edit feature, and I'm going to get the bulb assembly. I need to change the coordinate system, so I'll clear that selection, and I'll select one of these circles. It doesn't matter which one, and then I'm going to move this back about like that. And I'm looking at how much room I have here. I may not have allowed myself enough room in here, but we can edit those earlier features to increase that distance if we need to. Say OK to that. So now I've moved these out. Now I'm not sure if I gave myself enough room. I'm trying to remember whether the bulb comes out the back or whether it goes in through the front. I guess it comes out the back. So then I will continue on, and I'll move this cap off. So I'll edit feature, and I'm going to select this part. I need to redefine the direction, so I'll clear that selection, and I'll select this circle, any one of these circles that it will select. Then I'm going to move this back this way, and I'm also going to set it to rotate on that. Now we may need to change the direction of rotation if it's rotating the wrong way, but put a minus in front of that. Once I put in the 359 and I get it working, then I change it to 360. Just edit that and change it to 360. Alright, then I'm going to move these two components off. So I'll select this component and I'll select this component, clear that selection for the direction. I'll select one of these circles and I'm going to move this back. I'll accept that. Next I want to move this bulb forward and up, and so I'll go to my exploded view and I'll say edit feature. I will select the bulb, but I want to move it along this axis. So I'll select that axis and then I'll right click and I see that I have an expanded menu. Now sometimes I don't get that to come on, so I have to turn the X and Y back on, click on that again and right click, and see there that time I didn't get it. And I'll try right clicking out here and I don't get it there, so I'll turn those back on. I'll right click, I don't get it, I turn those off. So I don't know what is tricky about this, that you have to get in just the right location to get that extended menu. If somebody can figure out how to get that to always come up, let me know. So I could move to a selection, but I want to line that up, so I'm going to tell it to align with selection, and then I'll select one of these circles, it doesn't matter which one, to line that up. And then I can move this. Now I didn't leave myself enough room here, but we can take care of that later. And so I'm going to go ahead and say done on that one, and then I'll click on it again. And this time I'm going to move it up on the Y, and I could line this up again. Let's select this Y and I will align with selection, and I'll select this cylinder, so now it's perpendicular to the face of that cylinder. And I'm going to move this up and I'll say done on that one and accept that one. Okay, so now if I want to test all of this, I'll collapse it first and then I will animate the explosion. So it goes up and down, spins, the pins come out, it goes forward, and then that bulb goes up and out. So we just need to increase that space between here and here. Now it would probably be a good idea to name these various steps so that it would be easy to identify them, but I'm going to get lazy and just see that I need to move 9 forward more, I need to move 10 forward more, and then 11 I need to move it back. So I will go to say edit that feature and I'll go to 9. And so for 9 I need to go further ahead. It says 141. I'm going to change this to 160 and I will accept that, and then I will edit this again, edit feature, I'll go to 10, and that one's okay, so I can leave that one where it's at. And then 11, I need to move 11 back further, and so I'll go to 11, and it's 35 going in this direction, so pay attention to positive or negative. I'm going to move that to 45. I'll say done on that, and so that moved this back further and that. So where did I move just these two by themselves? So let's go to those two. So I'll go to 12. So that was 12, and then 13. So I'll move 12 back further. I might not need to move 12 any further, but I'll move it a little ways. So for 12, I'm going to go 45. And then for 13, I'm going to go 45 on that as well. And I went too far on that one, so I'll go back to 13 and let's do that 40. Okay, so I left myself some room here, and enough room for that bulb to get out of there, I think. So let's test this out. So I will go to collapse and I will animate this explosion. I want to look directly at this when I do this. So I will animate the explode. So it goes up, it goes down, and actually let's slow this down. It was on. I need to do that again. So I'm watching this bulb. I want to make sure it doesn't hit, and I can go through this step by step. And so then this one moves the plate and the contact plate and the bulb back, and then this moves the bulb forward, and oh, that's so close there. I might have moved that bulb too far forward, but anyways, it looks like it has room there, and so I'll play it from there. So it just barely had room to get past there. I might move those a little bit more, but I'm happy with that. So now we need to take these electrodes out of here. We need to take this yoke up, take the handle apart, take the button out. We have a couple of screws in here, so we'll do those steps next. I want to move this back just a bit more, and so I'll go through and I'll find that. That's Explode step 2. I'll edit that step, and instead of 45, I'm going to go 50. And say done on that. And then while I'm thinking about it, I want to change this back to transparent. So I will go to the head subassembly and I'll find the lens. I'll put the lens back on transparent. All right, the next thing I want to do is I want to move the electrodes out of the head, and we have to be a little bit careful on how we do this. Now what we can do is use this exploded assembly as instructions on how to put a mechanism together, whatever that mechanism happens to be. So I need to move this out into this hole, then I need to move it in this direction, and finally move it out this direction. Okay, so let's see how to do that. So I'm going to edit the exploded view, and I'm going to then select this part, and I want it to move coming out in this direction. And we can try dragging this point to this face, and this time it works. I don't know why. Sometimes I have trouble with it. It works, sometimes it doesn't work. So now I've got that direction, and I'm going to click on this again, and then I'm going to drag this out about like that. And so now I have this into this hole, and I will go ahead and accept that. And so then I want to move it in this way, and so I will select that part again, and I'm going to redefine, and I think I'll do it this way. So I'm going to click on this axis, and then I'm going to right click, and I'll tell it to align with selection, and I'll select this face. That'll put it perpendicular to that face, and actually it put it parallel to that face rather than perpendicular to that face. So let's do that again, and notice when I right click I'm not getting the options again. I'll click on here to turn these back on. Let's see if we can just drag this over here again. Alright, so I have it now lined up on that face, and I will drag it towards the inside, and I'll right mouse button to accept that, and then I'll select on it again, and I can move this over, but it's going in the, well, no, it isn't going in the correct direction. Now I want it perpendicular to that face, and so I'm going to click on this axis, and I'll right click, and I don't get that option, so I don't know what I'm doing, that sometimes it comes up and sometimes it doesn't. Let's try dragging this. So if I drag this over, and now it's perpendicular to that face, and I'm going to drag this out here. Now I'm using a 3D Connection Space Navigator, which makes it easier for me to move around and see, make sure that I have this out here far enough to get past that head. And so I'll say OK to that one, and then I need to move it again. So I'm going to edit feature again, and then I'll select this component, and I'm going to drag this, and so this time it won't let me drag it. And so I'm going to select this axis, and then I right click. I don't get the options, so I'll edit that feature. So as you're starting out, these are the same kinds of issues that you're going to run into. So I could just practice it and make everything real clean, but then you wouldn't see the same issues that you're going to run into. Alright, so I have that component. I try to drag this, and it doesn't let me drag that. If you know why it doesn't let me drag it, put that into the comments. Then I'm going to set a direction axis, and so I'm going to clear the direction, and I'm going to select this face. So now it's perpendicular to that face, and I can move this out, and I'll accept that. Alright, so we'll need to do the same thing on the other side. And so again, I will edit the explosion, edit feature. I'll select the part that I want to move. I'm going to select this axis. I right click. I don't see the option to change that. If I click on it again, I don't see the option. If I click on it again, I don't see the option. So sometimes I get that to come up, sometimes I don't. Again, if you can figure out or explain to me how to get that every time, put it in the comments. Edit feature. We'll select this part. I'm going to select this axis. I will try to right click on that, and I don't get the options to align it to that face. So I'll come over here, and for the alignment I'll clear this selection. I'll select that face, and I'll move this about like that, and I'll say OK to that. And now I need to move it towards the inside. So I'll edit that exploded view, edit feature. I'll select this component again. I'm going to select this axis, and I want it perpendicular to that face. And so I'll select that axis. I will try to right click and set it. I don't see the setting. I can try dragging this white dot. It doesn't move. And actually at some point I did get it on here. Actually I got it perpendicular to this face, which is the same thing. So I'm okay. I'm going to move this towards the inside, and I'll say OK to that. Alright, so now let's move towards the inside. Now I need to move it out. And so I'll right click, I'll do edit feature, I'll select on this again. I'm going to select this coordinate axis, clear the direction down here, select that face. Now it's perpendicular to that face. I'll move this out. Again, I'm going to move around with my space navigator, make sure I'm beyond the edge of the head, and I'll accept that, and then I'll select it again, and I will realign this axis. Let's come over here and clear this selection, and I'll select this face, and so I have it perpendicular to that face now, and I'll move this out some distance. I'll say OK to that. Alright, so let's test what we have so far. So I'm going to collapse, and then I'll do the explosion. So I'll do Animate Explode, and let's slow this down here. We've already checked out the beginning of this, so let's play this again. Alright, there we go. Okay, so these should come out. This one comes out and over. We might want to move these up here. I'm thinking about what I want to do when I create a 2D drawing of this, so that I can put balloons on all of the components for a parts list, and I want to make sure that all of the individual components are visible when we explode this. And so the next thing I want to do is I want to move these two screws out of here. So I'll find those two screws, and so here's the first one. So I need to edit my feature. I will select this screw, and I'm going to hold the control key down, or we can select it over here, and we may not need to actually hold that control key down. And so I see that it's going in the right direction, so I'm going to pull these out. Okay, so I have both screws. Now if we wanted those to rotate, we would need to do these two separately, but you'd really have to be zoomed in on it to see it rotating, and so I'm just going to pull those straight out. Alright, and then I need to pull this handle this way, and so I'll edit the exploded view, edit feature, I'll select the handle, and I'm going to move that out about like that. I'll accept that, and then I'm going to move this yoke up. And so I'll move that yoke up. Now I see that it's actually interfering back here a little bit, so I think I'll move it this way, and I didn't save that last movement of that. I'll move it this way, and then I'll move it up. So I'll edit feature, I'll select this component, I'm going to move this one over here, and I will go ahead and say done on moving that component. And then I'm going to select the yoke, and I want to get this as a tire sub-assembly, and so that will be the friction wheel. Find the friction wheel. Here's the friction wheel assembly. I will then move these over a little bit, and then I'm going to move the yoke up, and I might want to move that friction wheel out some more now, and so I'll go ahead and say done on that. I'll select the friction wheel again, and let's move this out a little bit further here now. I'm not going to disassemble the friction wheel, but there's actually a piece that's glued on here. And then I'll move this button. Now the way this button is created, it actually, when it comes forward a certain amount of distance, it can't go any further. It would interfere here and down here. So we actually need to rotate it back a little bit, then we can pull it out. And so I'll select that button. So I'll edit my feature. I'll select the button, and I want to rotate it about this point up here. So I'm going to try to drag this, and it's not letting me drag it. So actually it went someplace on the screen. I moved up here, and let's clear that selection, and let's clear this selection, and let's select this face right here. So we'll make this active. We'll select that face again, and I want to rotate that, so I'm going to tell it show rotation, and then I'm going to drag this back a few degrees. And when I let go of it, it went the wrong way, so let's I'll put in 10 degrees here. Now hit the tab key, and actually that didn't preview it. I'll flip the direction here, and that didn't do it. Well, let's just go ahead and accept that, and then I'll leave out of here, and then I'm just going to edit it. So I'll edit that last one, and so I'll go down and I'll find that last exploded step, and I'm going to edit that exploded step, and now it moves where I wanted it. So let's say done and see if it stays there. Okay, so now it's staying there. Right now I'll move this out, so I'll select the button again and I'll move it out. And so there we see our components. We'll go ahead and check everything. I want to make this screen, maximize that so I can see a good portion of it, then play this. So we'll collapse and then we'll explode it. Alright, I'm going to check this button. So let's go back. Okay, so it did do the way I wanted it to. I go one step forward, it rotates back, and then it comes out. Alright, so that completes the exploded assembly, and then we'll go into animation with this next. So let's watch this one more time. This time I'm going to animate the collapse, and so I'll do animate collapse. And so we see the button go in, these components go in, the ball, all of this come together. Now that might be a little bit fast. We're going to take this over into animation. Now before we move or do anything, we need to make sure we close this animation controller. That's probably one of the biggest problems we have, and it might be up here at the top of your screen someplace. You always have to close that. And then I'm going to go to add-ins, and I want to make sure that PhotoView 360 is loaded. And so I'll select PhotoView 360. I'm going to come down here to motion study. I have it set on animation, and I will come over here to the animation wizard, and I'm going to tell it to bring in the exploded or collapsed. Earlier we did a turntable rotation ourselves. We could have done the turntable rotation here, and so I'm actually going to do a collapse. So let's select collapse, and I'll say next, and I can tell it how long I want it to take to do that collapse. I'm going to leave this on 30 seconds for now, and then we can play this and watch it assemble the components. Now I see a mistake right in here, and actually I saw a mistake in here. And then that didn't occur quite right. So we have some edits that we need to do to take care of those issues. A couple of those issues were the rotations that occurred fine when we were in the exploded assembly. They didn't occur fine when we came here. We have to make sure those occur at the same time or simultaneously.